Hi everyone, I'm Rosie and welcome to Vox Yoga. Today is another vocal health video and I wanted to talk to you all about laryngitis, which can be a singer's worst nightmare. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information about what laryngitis actually is, what's happening to our voice, our vocal cords when it happens, certain causes, what we can do to prevent it, some treatment if you do find that you're getting it, and then just some of my personal experiences with laryngitis, as I have had it a few times and I have learnt exactly what not to do. So I'll share some of that with you as well. As with all of my videos, everyone's body and voice is different. So this is just to give you a bit more information, and if you are concerned, please go to your doctor or your GP. So what is laryngitis? In the most simplest way of explaining it, it is basically inflammation of the larynx or the voice box, and this is where your vocal cords sit. So in order to make sound, on our exhale, our vocal folds come together and vibrate. So if you were to sing an A, ah, your vocal folds are touching 440 times a second. So that's quite a lot of energy and effort needed to make the sound. And in order to make a clear sound as well, we want to have good closure when our vocal folds vibrate. So if you have laryngitis and your vocal folds are a bit swollen, you might find that they're not able to come together, which is why you might have a breathier sound because the air is coming through the vocal cords. You know how many times your vocal folds have to vibrate now. So the higher you go, the faster they have to vibrate. It's something like 1,000 on a top C up there. So of course as well, if they're a bit swollen or inflamed, it's harder for them to thin out and lengthen and come together, which is why you may find when you have laryngitis that you have a bit of a lower voice. So the symptoms of laryngitis, you might have guessed and you might know already, tend to be hoarseness, voice loss, raspiness. You might also find that actually you're just feeling like you've got a weak voice as well. Sometimes you might have more of a dry throat, a dry or a tickly cough, but the main symptom tends to be voice loss, which, as I said, is not great for singers, so it's something we do want to be mindful of. You may find that these symptoms last for just 1 day, 2 days. It may be that they last for a week in extreme cases. And unfortunately for some people, chronic laryngitis is a thing as well, in which case definitely go to your doctor. So what causes laryngitis? And there are a few different things. So the first would be viral laryngitis, which is caused by a virus in the body. If you're feeling a little bit run down, this can then go onto the larynx. It's quite rare, but you can also get bacterial laryngitis. Or one to really be careful of is laryngitis from overuse and strain. So things like shouting, yelling, or unfortunately singing at times if we're not being mindful of our vocal health. So I'll talk about prevention now. Some of these things will go into the causes of laryngitis from that last category. So we can't really prevent viruses except from keeping our bodies as healthy as possible, but they do just sometimes happen. However, we can try and prevent some of those things that can cause inflammation. Smoking, we already know already as singers that that can be an irritant. Maybe you have something that causes inflammation for you, things like allergies, being outside, or maybe being around pollution a lot. If you're in loud places a lot of the time, as I said, maybe shouting a lot. If you have a high vocal load as well, and you're not maybe warming up or cooling down as best as you could be doing, over time this can cause laryngitis. Also things like acid reflux, something that I suffer from myself, so I understand if you do, which is where the stomach acid comes up the esophagus and it can kind of tip over into the throat and the larynx, and that can cause inflammation. Again, if you think you have that as a singer, I would go to an ENT and get that checked out. Alcohol can also be an irritant for some. I sometimes think maybe it's not actually drinking, it's maybe the alcohol causes the acid reflux, or we go out and we're a bit tipsy and we end up shouting and then we're a bit husky the next day. So those are some things that can cause laryngitis. So what happens if you get laryngitis? So the main thing is rest, hydrate, rest, hydrate, rest and hydrate. So voice rest is going to be the biggest thing because your vocal cords need to reduce the inflammation. So if they're swollen, by not talking, you're going to give them a bit of a break. So voice rest, also resting the body as well. Everything is connected. Hydrate. You want to keep the area around the vocal folds as moist as possible to allow them to move more freely and keep them nice and healthy. So drinking lots of water to get into the body, hydrate from within, and then using a steamer or a nebulizer to really get moisture into the area of the throat around the vocal folds as quickly as possible. I've got a few more videos on your vocal health routine, how to put together a warm-up, a cool-down, so go and check those out if you need a little bit of help. So I mentioned that I have had laryngitis a fair few times and they've been caused by different things. So first of all, I'll talk about the overuse side of laryngitis. So if you've been on my channel before, you may have seen that I spoke about my vocal injury. I had nodules about 7 years ago now. I'll pop a link up to that video so you can check it out. So prior to being diagnosed with nodules, I probably had laryngitis maybe around 5 to 6 times over a year, I think. The first few times it was likely that it was caused by overuse. I was exhausted as I was teaching, rehearsing, performing all week. I'd go out at the weekend to loud places, maybe drink as well. And I brought it on myself. I know I did now. I've looked back and it was not a good routine for me to have as a singer. However, as I got closer to my diagnosis, it's likely that actually the nodules had developed by then, and then that maybe caused my laryngitis by having a nodule, something on the vocal fold. It was possibly causing friction and inflammation, which then caused me to lose my voice and get laryngitis. Most of those would probably last about 2 days maximum, and then it would kind of come back quite quickly. I would do SOVT exercises, which would really help. So I then also once had laryngitis one time in my life from a virus, and I'm just going to be very honest, it was awful. It was horrible. And I had a gig on the evening that it happened, and it came on so quickly. So I don't want to freak anyone out, but I think it's quite useful to know things like this as a singer, because you know, we know what it feels like when we have a bit of a cold, how to sing, we can often manage it. But I've never experienced anything like this before. So I had a gig on the Friday evening and I'd actually been off work. It was the end of the Easter holidays and I was going back to teach on the Friday. And I just remember being quite tired all week, but I felt fine. But like just really tired, and I didn't know why because I'd had a bit of a break. I'd practiced, I'd rehearsed on Thursday for the gig. Friday, I went to work. Again, I did a bit of a vocal warm-up in the car and I felt fine. And then I'd done about an hour's singing teaching and I was like, ooh, my upper range is feeling a bit just hard to get, feeling a bit tired, maybe cutting out a bit. And over the course of the day, my voice just went, to be honest. I got home about 4:30 and I thought, oh my God, I've got to leave in 2 hours for my gig. I should have cancelled. I should have cancelled. Please cancel a gig if you get laryngitis. But I didn't. I decided to go anyway. I was lucky, I say lucky, I don't know, that I was singing jazz with backing tracks. So I changed my tracks into a lower key. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I can do this. So the first 45-minute set was okay. People said to me, oh wow, you've got an amazing husky voice, which luckily worked well for the genre. But I normally have a very clear tone, and I'm actually a soprano, so it was not like me. And then the second set was horrendous. It was in quite a loud bar as well. It was background music, and I only had about an octave range. Through the second set, I was trying to change the melody to make it work. I normally have 3 octaves, so it was just awful. And I couldn't speak for 4 days afterwards. And when I say couldn't speak, I mean the first 2 days I had to get an app on my phone to type in things so it would tell my partner what I was thinking or if there was anything that I needed. And then the next few days, very slowly coming back, but I did have to take those off teaching. It was so irresponsible because A, I could have damaged my reputation as a singer, and B, you know, I could have caused actually some damage from singing through that, because there would have been so much effort and just force between my vocal folds for me to have to make the sound. So I have learnt from that experience, and please do not perform if you have laryngitis. I know it feels awful to cancel a gig, but I now know that if I ever have to do it, it's because I really have to. So please listen to your body, listen to your voice. And if you have laryngitis, rest, hydrate, steam. And that is what to take away from this video. So I hope it's given you a little bit more of an insight, just so you know what laryngitis is, and so you can look out for any warning signs, hopefully be able to prevent it happening to you. Sometimes knowing that actually a virus can just make you lose your voice, and it's, you know, it's not your fault. I mean, even if it's from overuse, it's still not your fault. It's just being mindful of your routine and thinking about how you can make sure it doesn't happen again in the future if it does happen. So I love to talk about vocal health, so please let me know if you've got any questions. So if you found this useful, hit like, hit subscribe. I release weekly videos all about keeping a healthy voice and exploring your voice as a whole instrument. So thank you for joining me for this video, and hope to see you again soon.